Hello, this is Gonzo. A few days ago I was messing around with some Mark III parts. Literally made a giant pencil. It had some, I don't know, it was like 6 Curbodyne Rhino engines, and it was about 120 meters long, and I launched it. And it was an SSTO. It went to about the moon's orbit. So I thought to myself, well, if this rod can get into space and go that high and that fast, why can't I make a carrier that can do that? So I tried to make one. It flipped out of control, and eventually I got it right. And this is fruits of my labour. It's something like 70 meters tall. It has 2 Mark III cargo bays for hangars, and it has 4 little hangars here, as you can see they're highlighted in green at the bottom of the screen there. And they are missile pods. They can hold, I think they can hold 2 missiles each, but it depends on how big I make them. I haven't really designed those yet, and I'll launch those later on. But yeah, as you can see, it's quite big, and I've only got it into space once, and I hope I can do it again. But yeah, it's pretty neat. Quite a unique design as well. I haven't really seen that many carriers that look like this, but as you can see, our little Kerbal here is just standing on the top. But let's get him back inside, and then let's launch this thing and get up to space. I'm going to play this back in, I think it's 4 times speed, just to avoid the boring ascent that this would be otherwise. I'm going to try and keep the ascent profile relatively efficient, sort of towards how the old aerodynamics used to be, so doing the grav turn at 10,000 meters. The trick to doing that really is just to make sure that your center of mass is really high above the center of lift, so that when it drains, or I mean at launch anyway, so that means when it drains as you go up, that centre of mass will drop, but it still needs to be above the centre of lift. So you have to think of it like a space plane, really. And when you do the turn at that kind of height, you have to be very careful. Like on the nav ball, you have the prograde marker. But if you go too far, it's about the width of the prograde marker itself. If you go too far below the lowest part of the yellow line, you'll flip. So you have to keep it quite close and gently pull the trajectory down to get to the 45-degree angle. Unfortunately, you'll see in just a moment the ship spins uncontrollably. I think that was because the ship wasn't lined up with the prograde marker when I turned the engines off, which I don't know, just the aerodynamics didn't like that and just made it spin. So not to worry, it's not the end of the world. The aerodynamics won't slow us down to the point where we won't get into space. I also messed up a little bit as well. I tried to use physics warp when I was trying to move the ship, and it blew up, so I had to relaunch it. So if you notice there's a difference in the altitudes in the orbit, that's why. But not to worry, it still managed to get up. So it's time to begin the orbital insertion burn. As you can see, we're just throttling up, full power. We've got plenty of fuel left, surprisingly, which is pretty good, so we can just about bring the other side out of atmo to circularise the orbit, so not too bad going. I was expecting the fuel to drain a lot faster than it did, but we actually managed to keep quite a bit of it left, if you'll see here. And there we go, we have orbit. So a nice successful flight of the SSTO naval carrier. After that rather hairy ascent, I think I'm going to get our chief engineer on the project, Jenna M. Kerman, on EVA, so he can just check to make sure there's no damage on the ship. And then this way we can have a nice tour. And as you can see, we've got a nice little area for the crew to come out of. I did actually design this thing to have the facilities to scan for ores, as you can see here on these 2 scanners, and to refine and store some of it as well, so we can refuel this thing no matter where we are. Because I'm not really sure whether or not this has the Delta V to get to Joule or the outer planets. I know it can probably get to Eve or Duna, so we could always go to one planet, refuel, and then move on. But let's get these solar panels out as well to make sure we can generate charge. So far there are no signs of damage, which is good. Just passing the hangars and the ordnance bays. And then down here is the thermal management system, which, as you can see, there's just a few of the larger radiators. Now we're down at the main power plant. Please excuse the use of part clipping. I only used the little editor thing they added in recently in the SPH, just because it looked weird having them all sticking out on the sides of that, and I think it looks much better when they're close together. I didn't clip them entirely just because of the fact that that would be a bit cheaty, although I have more or less gone there. But yeah, refueling this thing is probably going to be a huge pain, unfortunately, but there's not really all that much I can do. I'm just going to have to launch as big a ships as I can to get them up and do as much as I can at once, but it's going to end up having probably 20 service ships just to get it close to complete. I just deliberately didn't bring up much monopropellant just because it's dead weight, and even trying to use a monopropellant to extend the orbit's not a great idea. Barely moves it, if anything. Now let's have a look in one of the hangars. It doesn't have much capacity to hold crew, unfortunately. It only has, you know, one of these little crew modules in each of the hangars, and that's it, other than the bridge. But there is an internal section where the refinery is and the main electric charge generation is, which we'll just go to that now, actually. If I can just get him in. Now if we look inside the ship, we'll see in here there's a probe core if we need to control it from here at any point. And there's lots of power generation. These fuel cell converters, they're actually pretty good. But obviously it's not really going to work out at the moment because we don't have any fuel. But when I do bring a refueler up, we can go to a distant moon or a planet and just generate charge from this. And then above that we've got, it's very hard to see actually, we've got the ore container, which is again difficult to see, and there's lots of SAS modules in here as well. And there is a converter as well. So we've got the facilities to create fuel if we need to, which is nice. I actually forgot to set up action groups as well, which is a bit of an oversight, but it's not exactly, you know, the end-all situation. So yeah, it's quite an odd-looking ship. Don't really know what else I can do to change the style of it, unfortunately. But you know, I mean, leave a comment if you have any suggestions. But I think I'm going to name this thing the KSS Orion in memory of the old carrier that I had, because that no longer flies, and I can't put a fairing around it to fix that. It's just too big. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this, and if you have any ships like this, do send me a link to it, because I'd like to see them. So yeah, I'll see you in the next one.